Hello, pilgrims, and welcome to A Good Book, where we take book awards with a grain of salt. We put those award-winning books through our own rigorous review process.
Very clinical, very scientific.
Yeah, all with the goal of helping you curate the perfect library. I'm Nick, and as always, I'm joined by a man who has not lost his muse, my cousin Sam.
That's me, I'm Sam.
How's it going?
Going good. Great band, Muse. I haven't thought of them in a while, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so this is going to be an exciting one. Before we get into our book for this week, we're starting with a book question. And before I ask, I just want to state for the record that I've got a prediction about what your answer is going to be, Sam, and I wrote it down, and we're going to see whether or not I'm correct.
Yep, I did the same, Nick.
Okay.
Right here on this piece of paper.
All right, here it is. So the question is, what individual book or book series do you recommend to people more than any other one? What is your top recommended book or book series? And why?
Okay. Ooh, there's an and why.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't have I have time to ask ChatGPT, so I'm going to have to just let me do a quick Google. Yeah, so as you may have guessed, my all-time favorite series, especially in recent years, is the Malazan Book of the Fallen by Stephen Erickson. Is that what you? Yep, that's what you wrote down.
See.
Okay,
there it is. I knew it.
Wow! Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a series that I bounced off of several times. And in my 20s, I had a friend who recommended them, and I read the first couple books several times. And by the time I started them again a couple years ago during the pandemic, I could not remember for the life of me anything about the books. So I guess I just wasn't ready. It's a series you gotta be ready to read them because they're a lot. But I've never laughed so much or cried so much. Well, men don't cry, so but metaphorically. And it's just like the depth of feeling in this series. It's a incredibly epic metal fantasy series.
It really is.
Yeah. I just love it. As you know, I got you into it too.
Yeah, I think you recommended it to me. I think you were on like book 6 or something, and you were just like, you have to. And I could just tell that I needed to. So I did. It took me almost 2 years, but I would concur. I think it's incredible. It's not like any other fantasy series I've ever read. The ideas are just so unique, and you get so deep into it. Yeah, it's great, and I've recommended it quite a bit. Also, I think I've had one. Most people don't because it's 10 giant books. Which I'm sure you've also experienced.
You're the only person I've successfully convinced to read these books who has stuck with it past the first book.
Okay.
Yeah, I think these books can be intimidating. They're very well written. I would say they're beautifully written, but the writing, it has a bad reputation for being very dense. I would say they're not dense. It's just verbose, and I think that's good. It's credit to it.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, in my estimation, it might be dense, but I really like it. It's definitely good. And I have 2 friends who tried. One, he read the first few chapters of the first book and was just like, I can tell this is not for me. And I was like, okay, that's fine, because it's a pretty big commitment. So.
Oh, yeah.
Another friend who read all of books 1 and 2 and didn't necessarily dislike it, but just, the other thing is each book is like over 1,000 pages. So it's a big commitment. And he was just like, I'm not in a place where I can make that kind of commitment for 8 more books. And then I have another friend who ran with it, and he's currently on book 7. So I think he's got a pretty good shot of getting all the way to the end.
Wow, I'm excited to hear more. I feel you on that. Some people, it's not for everyone. First chapter, and I was sucked in. It was just like I knew I enjoyed the vibe immediately.
Yeah. I'm the same. Stephen Erickson's writing is like my ideal vibe. And so, I was the same way. Like, just like my friend who's read the first few chapters and knew it wasn't for him, I was like, that's fine. Because I read the first few chapters and I was like, this is 100% my kind of book. And so but like, if someone's not into it, I'm not going to be like, you need to read 10,000 more pages before you decide. So.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, we're the superior beings and readers.
Right. Yeah. For
in
sure.
this
For
very
sure.
objective analysis we do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As evidenced by our hugely successful podcast.
Yes.
Okay, well that's a great one, and
Yeah, tell me about
I'm
yours
glad I
though.
read it.
Let's see if
So
I guessed right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So mine is the Lock Tomb series.
You know what? I should have guessed that.
What did you guess? I'm so curious.
I just figured it would also be Malazan.
Oh, okay. You know what? I do recommend it a lot, and as you've already heard, I mean, the fact that 3 people tried it means that I probably recommended it to like 10 people, right?
Right. Okay, tell me more. Lock Tomb.
Yeah. So I love the Lock Tomb series. It's definitely my favorite series. The second book in it, Harrow the Ninth, I think is my favorite book, and I've read it multiple times, and I feel like I've just recommended it to so many people, friends, family. I've got a few sister-in-laws now who have read it. I've given it as gifts. Yeah, it's just like I feel like it's so good. And what I really recommend, like obviously I recommend reading them, but what I actually recommend, my like full prescription that not everyone follows, but some people have, is that you read the 3 books and then you listen to the 3 audiobooks read by Moira Cork. Very talented. People of our age might remember her as the referee on the Nickelodeon show Guts.
Huh.
She does a great job reading it, and you listen to the Lock Tomb podcast, which is a reread podcast, in between the audiobook chapters. And then once you've done that a few times, then you've really gotten to the place that I think where I think you need to be.
Yeah, I've read them per your recommendation, and I absolutely loved them. And I did the audiobook. I can attest to how great that is. It's one of the most fun audiobooks I've read or listened to, and I have been feeling like I need to do a reread. So I'll be doing that along with the podcast at some point in the near future.
And I should have mentioned, if people don't know, I should have mentioned Tamsin Muir is the author, and we are waiting and have been waiting for years for the 4th and final installment, which will be Alecto the Ninth. So it's Gideon the Ninth, then Harrow the Ninth, and then Nona the Ninth. Those are the 3 books we have already. Alecto the Ninth was originally scheduled to be released. Man, it was the fall of like 2024, I think. And that was when I did my most recent reread of them, was because I knew we were building up to that. It's not here yet, but it sounds like it is hopefully coming out mid 2027. So I would say to listeners, if you haven't read Lock Tomb, you're going to want to get on that soon so that you can read and then listen with the reread podcast all before you get to the 4th book.
If that story of changing timetables tells you anything, Tamsin Muir is clearly and absolutely a real perfectionist kind of writer. And you got to wait a bit for her writing, but it's really, really artful and fantastic and fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love it so much. So, and I would say both of what we've discussed, I would recommend. I mean, if you listen to our show and you think that you share our reading taste, you will enjoy both of those series for sure. But moving on from that, today, week 6, this is your pick, Sam. So why don't you tell us what we're going to be discussing today?
All right. So you might have heard this name in passing or just as one of those classic sci-fi series. We're going to be reading Hyperion by Dan Simmons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Published in, I believe, 1989. And it won both the Hugo and the Locus Awards in 1990. I've been hearing this book all my life. I never really, never occurred to me to read it because I never read a lot of this older sci-fi and fantasy. Nick, tell me, have you read anything else by Dan Simmons?
I have not. I've not. I know that he's got some non-science fiction stuff, some more like horror, wilderness type of stuff. But I've not. This was my first book by him.
Okay, I really highly recommend his novel The Terror, which is it's a horror / historical fiction novel about the Franklin expedition to find the Northwest Passage, which, as you may or may not recall, they went into the Northwest Passage and they never came out. They were never seen again. And people didn't really know what happened to them apart from some stories passed down from First Nations people who had interacted with them along the way. So it's a chilling story on its own, and to make it a horror novel, it's really well done.
Wow, and based on having read this, I can imagine that being really good.
Yes.
Did you do a one sentence for us?
I did.
Let's hear it. Mm.
Just had fun with it.
Yeah.
If Agatha Christie had done a ton of acid while watching 2001, she might have written something like this.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. I've got "Don't be fooled by the genre label, semicolon. This is some highbrow literary shit."
Very accurate.
Yeah, so why don't you talk to us a little bit about Dan Simmons, or a little bit about, the time period when this was written?
Sure. Let's talk about Dan Simmons first. So he was born in Peoria, Illinois, which is not really too far off from where I live these days, interestingly enough. And he was writing...
I believe that's where Wayne's World takes place.
Oh, really?
I think so, yeah.
Well, that's so interesting. I didn't know little old Peoria had so much world stage.
I'm so sorry, it's Aurora.
Okay.
Boy, I'm glad. This is riveting stuff.
We would get called out by so many people from Aurora.
Yeah.
All the Wayne's World heads.
Yeah.
Good thing you looked that up. So he was a child. He was writing stories. Always loved to write stories. Got a bachelor's in English from Wabash, followed by a master's in education from Wash U in St. Louis. In 1971, started writing short stories, but his day job was a rural elementary school teacher in Missouri. At some point, he befriended Harlan Ellison, who, have you heard of Harlan Ellison?
Is it a media guy?
I haven't heard of him before, but he was
Okay.
a very prolific writer in speculative fiction, won a ton of awards in the 60s and 70s. So yeah, he befriended this guy, Ellison, and Ellison got him invited to the Milford Workshop, which is a writer's workshop, 1982. And that's when things started to take off for him. So not long after that, he got a short story published in the Twilight Zone magazine, and that was taken on. And then his first novel, Song of Callie, was a horror novel that was published in 1985. So things are starting to ramp up for him. He's starting to get noticed. He's known in the community. And since then, he's published tons of novels and stories, including Hyperion in 1989. As you can probably already tell, he bridges a lot of genres. I mean, I mentioned Agatha Christie in my description. You mentioned literary fiction. It's a sci-fi novel. He's also written about the Northwest Passage. But the one through line in his work, as you'll see, it's a strong connection to classic literature. He was an English major through and through. The Hyperion's a very strong example of that.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll hold off till we talk about the writing, but that totally tracks because that comes through like really, really strongly in this book.
Yeah.
What about the time period?
Time period. Just briefly, what was going on in 1990 for the youngins in the room? This was the end of the Cold War, the reunification of Germany, collapse of the Soviet Union, big world stage moment, big change in the world order that had existed for the last 40 years. There was also the launch of the Hubble Space Telescope on the science space front, which I think we're still getting pictures from today. Please write in if that's wrong. And I think the biggest influence on Simmons, though, out of all this was the debut of Friends.
I mean, what is this book if not a story about some friends on a trip? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what this is really about. See if I can get license for the theme song for this part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably not.
I don't know. See if they don't really take my calls, not since the incident.
Yeah, and I don't know. So that's really interesting to think about. I hadn't thought as much about the Cold War piece or the Hubble. But one thing I was thinking about was like, this is sort of, it's just interesting to me. It's interesting to me whenever I read older sci-fi that there's so much technology that is in there that I feel like does tie to our modern world, but like we didn't have it quite yet when it was written, which is, that's always an interesting thing for me to think about, which we can get into a little more in the spoiler cast, like specifically what I mean, but.
Yeah, no, it's always interesting to see what they think the world's going to be like.
Right.
And what technologies are going to be important and see what actually worked and what already feels archaic.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, what did you think of Simmons' writing?
I think his writing was fantastic. I mean, like I said, you can tell he's an English major. Full of literary references. I would say this book is, in a lot of ways, an homage to certain aspects of literature. I don't want to give away too much, but yeah, it's artful, it's fun. The structure of this book, right? It's almost a series of short stories that are tied together by a central story and plot, right? And each story is almost written in a different genre. It's from a different perspective, and each story is like the writing changes between stories. It's very playful and just very well done.
Yeah, I also loved it. It's structured like the Canterbury Tales from Chaucer, yeah, which is essentially a group of pilgrims who are traveling to London to visit a shrine, and you sort of get their stories along the way, which, again, this just feels like so it's on so many levels, right? It's like he's taking this, like, not just like a classic's not even the right word, right? Like I don't even know what the word is for what that, Chaucer, I feel like, is like one of the things that helped like create literature, you know what I mean? At least in English. And so there's an homage to that. But then, like you said, like we get, like there is like there's a body horror story. There's like all of this like deep religious imagery, or there's like a noir detective piece. There's like so many different, there's some stories that are just like so deeply like emotional and about like family trauma, and all of these like really kind of classic, beloved literary styles, and he works all of them in, and they all work. I mean, like, some are more successful than others, but they all have the hallmarks that really, they feel like that genre of writing. And it somehow feels cohesive, and it all adds something to the ultimate story. And yeah, I thought it was so cool. When it started and I read the prologue, I was like excited for the plot. And then once it became clear to me that the plot was not what I thought it was going to be, that the actual plot was just hearing about how everyone got here. But it was so good that it totally worked. Like it got to the point where then when we had those little brief interludes of like, oh, now we're caught up and we're just like in between the stories, I was just like, no, like I want to hear the next story. Like I am like all in on getting everyone's story. Yeah. So it didn't feel at all like disjointed short stories or anything like that. To me, it really just felt like a really like robust reading experience. Yeah, I was really, really impressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. I completely agree. It was fully cohesive, and it wasn't just this collection of short stories that are all in a different genre. It's very much anchored in each story is one of these pilgrims. It's from their own perspective and experience. So when you're reading, like, for example, like the noir story, you feel like this is how this person sees the world.
Right.
It's very much just... And that is so there. It felt like there's a reason for there to be that perspective in that genre. It wasn't just for kicks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it gives you a lot more insight into that character, but it also helps you at least get closer to figuring out like what's going to happen at the end of this pilgrimage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For context, the reader should understand this is the first book in what became I want to say 3 or 4 book series.
Yeah, I believe it's 4.
Yeah, so I got to read the rest of them now.
Yeah. Characters, how did they work for you?
They worked great. This book was all about exploring characters.
Yeah.
To me, like, these stories were from the perspective of the characters, and that's what it was all about. It was like the plot moves along outside of the characters, and when you meet everybody, you don't know anyone. You're introduced to all these people, and I remember thinking, I can't keep all these names straight. But then, just person by person, you get to know them very, very intimately, and just the book just gets better and better as that builds.
Yeah. I mean, it would almost just be like such a fail if the characters didn't work for us, because it really, whereas in a lot of books, it's like the plot is advancing and the characterization is sort of happening as you go. In this case, it's like the whole book was the characterization sort of, So, yeah, I mean, like going into book 2, like I feel very invested in all of these characters, and I feel like I have a really clear sense of what the stakes are for each of them. It's still not clear to me, like, I have no idea what's going to happen in book 2. And so I do think Simmons was very successful there of like, a lot of times you get a first book in a series that is like just sort of like setting the stage. But this was like an extreme version of that almost. Like they just got there. Like nothing really happened in the present day of the story, but again, like it never felt boring. I was super interested. And to the point, like even if I never continue this series, like I feel totally satisfied just from that story of like these seven pilgrims arrived in a spaceship and they're doing this thing that is scary and really unclear, and like here's how they all got here, and like that on its own was so successful that like I mean I probably will read it just because like I read a lot of books and why not read this, but I feel good, like I am all at peace with this because it was so good.
Dude, I was about to say the same thing. I want to read the rest of them, but this book really, it feels good. It feels completely good on its own. In some ways, I'm apprehensive about reading the rest because I don't know if they can top this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just in terms of the structure of it, and just it's such a well thought out design.
I kind of feel that way too. I have lower expectations for the rest of the series than I do. Like I don't expect the rest because as you like, it's such an interesting premise. The writing was so good, and like I feel like when you're starting any story, you want to have a really clear, fleshed out idea of all your characters. And so like we were probably leaning into like where he felt the most confident, but like I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm excited to see. Obviously, he's a great writer, and he set us up really well, and I don't think he would have spent a whole book introducing us to everybody like this if he didn't have a kind of a clear picture of where it was going. So yeah, I will continue, but it felt that it was unusual to have it be such a nothing in terms of the plot, but also to feel like so meaty and satisfying. It was very interesting kind of paradox there.
Yeah, nothing I've never read anything like this before.
And even each story, like I think I texted you when I finished chapter 1, which was just the first story of one of the characters.
Yes.
And I was like, I could stop right now and be good. But like just this as its own short story would have been incredible. And I felt that way about several of them.
Same. They were great completely on their own, and I would say the first one was probably my favorite, but each one built on the knowledge you're learning about the universe in the others, because you don't know anything about. It's sci-fi, so they just throw you in the deep end immediately. That's the sci-fi way, right? And you're just picking up what's going on in bits and pieces. And each of these stories gives you this universe, this really fascinating universe from very different perspectives. So it was just neat to see things get filled in, and sometimes what one character thinks about one thing is totally different from another character. So it becomes this very rounded perspective you get.
Yeah. If I had to make one complaint, sometimes I hear criticisms like this and it bothers me because I'm just like I heard some people complaining about this book that, about the poet character and how they feel like this is a classic example of a writer like trying to glorify other writers or things. I don't know. Like I heard so much kind of nitpicky criticism of this book that I felt like wasn't useful, that I hesitate to say this, but I sometimes feel a little strange when there's a lot of like references to our modern, like our world in this book that's happening so far in the future. Like there's a scene at the end where they're singing a song from The Wizard of Oz, and there's a scene right at the beginning where a character is playing like a classical piece on the piano. And yeah, I feel like those things can land in different ways for me. Like the classical music thing somehow worked for me because I'm like, oh yeah, well, we listened to classical music from hundreds of years ago still being played. So I guess I don't know why it couldn't be the same with Song from the Wizard of Oz.
That is really interesting because the Wizard of Oz bit, actually, that really got me. I thought that was really cool.
Interesting.
And I get what you're saying. I think it can be weird because as much as we like classical music, we're not all walking around singing like 18th century ballads or quoting Voltaire. Or these 19th century poets like Byron. I guess I don't mind it.
Yeah.
I don't mind it because it gives for me as a reader, it gives me this weird feeling where you it makes you see the world that you're currently in differently, because you don't think of these things as ancient artifacts,
Right.
but they do. And it just like, it gives you this perspective shift, which can be a little unsettling. And having little bits and pieces like the Wizard of Oz get thrown out there, just, I don't know. For me, it's cool. I think if they overdo it, it's too much. And I kind of agree. Sometimes he overdoes it. I do think this guy in particular really loves English literature.
Yeah.
You can see that showing through, and he's writing what he loves.
Yeah. And I agree that he doesn't overdo it. I think, and, without getting too much into the plot, it is clear that there's been a lot of the history and culture of Earth that has been preserved, and people have gone to great lengths to preserve it. And so, it's not, and especially if I just think about like we're not walking around singing 18th century ballads, but like a couple hundred years from now, it's possible that it will be easier for people to access songs that we listen to now, just because of all the digital tools that we have. Yeah. It didn't take anything away from me, but there were a few times when I was just like, well, that's an interesting, it's just like, I just wonder what it added. And I will say, at least with the Wizard of Oz scene, like it was very appropriate for what they were doing. Yeah. And it did, because sometimes I just
literary tie-in.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know why I worry about it. Like, why not just have fun with it? And it did. The thing that made me like okay with it was it did also remind me of the last scene in Full Metal Jacket where they're marching and singing the Mickey Mouse Club song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why it reminded me of that for some reason. And that was, I like that. So, if I just think about it, sometimes if I'm just like visualizing it, it's like, who cares? This is cool. This is fun. This guy is just giving you like really, it's not like it's not like this is a book of cheap thrills, like this is all really deep stuff.
Do I think this is a realistic portrayal of the future? I mean, probably not, but who knows? I don't think, for me, that's not the point.
100%.
I do want to add, these little bits they bring in from the past, I think for me, like from a historic perspective, it's also cool because living in the modern time, we really don't know what people are going to take away from this period and what's going to be resounding 100 years from now. Like it could be Captain and Tennille.
Yeah.
Probably not, but maybe.
Yeah. Could be friends.
It could be friends. I think that's more likely.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, you're right. It's not the point, right? Like, and this is obviously like, I mean, the one reason to read sci-fi and fantasy is that they're fun. It's great for your imagination. But oftentimes, especially with good ones, you're really reading it to explore larger ideas, and that we've got a lot of really big ideas in here about what it means to be human, about colonialism, about religion. I mean, there's so many really, really big ideas. And that is another reason I want to keep going, I think, is just to sort of see where he takes those ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. I have to know what happens. I have to know who's behind the curtain.
Yeah. Yeah.
To keep up with the Oz metaphor.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts before we rate this?
No, I got stuff to talk about in the spoiler cast, but
yeah, me for sure. Yeah. So again,
I think I'm ready.
Reminder: if you read this already and you really want to dive in, we're gonna do it in the spoiler cast, but not quite yet. First, before we do that, Sam, on a scale of 0 to 7 pilgrims, what do you rate this book? 7
pilgrims, absolutely 7 pilgrims. I just really enjoyed it. There were some of the stories I liked more than others, but overall I think it was a masterful book and absolutely worth reading. If you like big epic sci-fi, if you like English literature, if any of this crosses over in your interests, give it a read.
Yeah. I would echo that. I would echo that. I would definitely give it 7 pilgrims. It is, in terms of sci-fi, it checks a lot of boxes. It's super fun. It's really using this like futuristic setting to explore really large ideas about humanity that are applicable to our world now. And as we've discussed, like just in terms of a piece of literature, I think, and I'm someone who thinks that there's a lot of really good science fiction and fantasy literature out there, but this is a cut above most of it, I would say. This is like, this is not like rejecting the sort of the classic Western canon. This is like embracing it and incorporating it into science fiction in a really great and successful way. is long, so be aware of that. If you're not someone who's into longer books, this may not be your thing, but
it's really like 6 short books cobbled
yes.
together, though. You can think of it like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, so
All
I
right.
think we're saying if you like science fiction, I mean, you got to read this. I don't know why we waited so long.
Yeah, this is probably one of the more unique sci-fi books that you'll read, and it's great.
Yeah. Okay, for next episode, so first of all, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed what you heard. Hopefully you're going to go out and get Hyperion. For our next episode, we're actually doing another Sam pick, which is a little bit of a shift for us. It's going to be Crisis Zone by Simon Henselman, which is a graphic novel. And
Really
I'll leave it at that.
Looking forward to talking about that one. All right.
Yeah. All right. If you will be there, then we'll see you on the spoiler cast immediately. And if not, then we'll see you next week for Crisis Zone. Bye, everyone.
Bye, y'all.